China has welcomed a move by the White House to exempt smartphones, computers and other electronics from its reciprocal tariffs. The decision came after China imposed its own 125% levy on American goods late last week. It's designed to provide relief for a number of American tech companies who produce their products in China. But US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says the reprieve will only be temporary.
These are included in the semiconductor tariffs that are coming, and the pharmaceuticals are coming. Those two areas are coming in the next month or two. So this is not like a permanent sort of exemption. He's just clarifying that these are not available to be negotiated away by countries. These are things that are national security that we need to be made in America.
Meanwhile, China has repeated its call for the lifting of all tariffs. The Commerce Ministry has issued a statement saying, "We urge the US to take a big step to correct its mistakes, completely cancel the wrong practice of reciprocal tariffs and return to the right path of mutual respect." Let's get more on this. Dr. Keiyu Jin is a global economist and author of the New China Playbook. She's based in Hong Kong and joins us now. Dr. Jin, welcome. We can say there's been a weekend of confusion really as to where Donald Trump's tariffs are at. He excluded imports of smartphones and laptops from those higher tariffs, but he's making the point that they're still subject to these tariffs. What do you make of this latest move?
I think, first of all, it's a signal on both sides that there needs to be a lot to be discussed, maybe behind closed doors. China's open for discussion. U.S. is potentially open to being back to rational dialogue. But also, I think this is also very strategic and selected, where it protects really Apple, the exemptions of electronics. And of course, China also strategically targeting certain things like, putting on really high tariffs that China wanted to substitute away and lowering the tariffs that it really needs.
And Trump says this is temporary, that these tech-specific tariffs are still coming. Howard Lutnick says the levies will be announced within the next 2 months. Is that dampening any optimism here?
I think it's bargaining chip. It's just trying to project a position of strength, and China's going to do that as well. Look, all the policies are changing all the time. There's absolutely no predictability. And really, the companies really suffer because they can't make any contingent plans.
And so what are the markets making of it or expected to make of this?
Greater volatility, but also longer-term repositioning of their capital base. I mean, U.S. is really headed towards a more likely scenario of recession.
Now, Australia is impacted, of course, by what's happening between the US and China, more so than the direct moves on us. Both have escalated these tariffs, but you say that this Trump shock is propelling China to change tack. What do you mean by that? What do you see happening here?
There are lots of unexpected consequences. You block China on certain things, guess what they're going to do? They're going to try to do it better, and they're going to try to win. You make China comfortable and let them import stuff you don't want them to make themselves. That actually is the right strategy. It's all reverse. I don't really understand why Trump wants to protect lower-end basic manufacturing like textiles and apparel and basic electronics, because that has nothing to do with national security. So their strategy against China is exactly the opposite of what it should be.
So as you put it, Trump should not fear a comfortable China. He should fear a constrained one. Do you think that is dawning on him?
It's playing out quite evidently ever since Trump 1.0. Thanks to the export bans, China's out and able to complete its own domestic capacity supply chain, especially for critical components. But what's more important is that Trump has pushed the likes of Japan and South Korea, pivotal economies in the high-tech supply chain, to at least be 1 foot in China, 1 foot in the U.S., even if they're not fully committed. That means there is no more existential crisis for China on the critical components part.
And China has said that this reprieve for smartphones, it was a small step towards easing this trade fight. The US says it's still waiting for China to pick up the phone. Do you think that's likely?
China says that it won't be engaged in what it considers to be a farce and a joke, and basically saying, look, this come back and be rational, and there are issues to discuss. China's happy to buy things from the U.S. U.S. could be easing on certain things that would be great for China. So I think it's just really a signal that they don't really want to be engaged either in a trade war or in this kind of nonsensical, back and forth.
And And as to what happens next, I mean, the Trump administration is flagging computer chips and pharmaceuticals could be the next target for tariffs. Pharmaceuticals would certainly affect Australia. But as these threats loom, what's the immediate effect we're seeing, but also that longer-term effect on markets and confidence there?
It's an age of volatility and uncertainty, as if the geopolitical uncertainty levels are not high enough. Throw into policy uncertainty, inconsistency of U.S. policy. As Washington plays with more of this short-term leverage and also weaponizing the dollar, guess what's going to happen elsewhere? There is going to be a huge effort to de-dollarize and to reduce exposure to the U.S. Back a few years ago, it was about de-risking from China. Now, countries are thinking, we don't want to be at the mercy of any one country.